Welcome back to the Hearse Chaser podcast show. Today, we are tackling divorce. Now, you might ask, what is the Hearse Chaser? What does he know about divorce? Why is he attacking? Not attacking might not be the best word, but why are we touching the subject? Well, the reason is there are so many things that people need to know. I used to do a lot of family law, so if you're recently separated, thinking about being separated or gone through a divorce, this is the episode to talk about. I'm going to talk about tips, things that I would tell you, mindset, things to know from somebody, importantly, who doesn't want your case. I'm never, if I don't have to, ever doing another family law, custody, divorce case ever again, but I've learned some things. I've talked to folks who do those things. I'm going to share those in this podcast. So welcome back to the Hearse Chaser podcast show.
You're listening to the Hearse Chaser podcast show. Here's your host, Stephen McClellan.
All right, so this is an unusual topic in that I don't do family law. I don't do divorces. I used to. I have a very strong opinion. I don't like it. I hate it. And if you're watching this, I know there are so many emotions that you have. So the first thing I just wanted to say is that I'm going to say a number of things, and without knowing anybody specifically, I know some of these things are going to be swings and misses. They're not going to apply. So there's a little bit on you, the listener, wherever you are, whatever state you're in, to take the gold nuggets that I give you in here, to use the best of it for your benefit. Okay? Don't hate the whole episode, please. If you like it, please subscribe, like, something. But importantly, I just want you to know that when I sit down with clients and I hear their stories, what's key about an attorney is an attorney will say things that only applies to the person in front of them. That is, we're not going to tell you a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't apply. We're going to say what is very germane, what's very topical for you. So I put this together, put some things to talk about, but know that I can't hit every topic, okay? And I'm going to speak somewhat general so that you know what you're getting into. Is that fair to say? I want to tell you that the best thing I can recommend, if you go over to the Hearse Chaser podcast show, go to stage 8. So we designed the academy to focus on estate planning, and there are so many estate planning implications to divorce. Now, those are on my mind because I do estate planning all the time, but most of the time, divorce attorneys, that's not on their mindset. They do the divorce, they get the agreement signed by the judge, and they're done, right? They move on to another case because a lot of times it's putting out case after case. So I highly encourage you, if you're going through a divorce, check out stage 3. Great. I put my heart and soul in it, but I wanted to put together a podcast for folks to give them just a little bit of what that's about. So second thing, so you get the golden nuggets. Second thing is be careful where you get your advice from, okay? I see these posts on social media, who is the best divorce attorney in the area? And and everybody starts talking about, oh, this attorney is terrible. This person represented my spouse. This person did me wrong, promised me things, paid him too much. Oh, my goodness. Individual results are going to vary too much. And your case, your family dynamics are different than anybody else's. But I'd like to share with you few things that I've heard said by attorneys that do divorce. Now, I'm saying these things to you, so hopefully it helps prepare you, okay? I had an attorney who did divorce, a lot of divorce, say this: at the initial consultation, you want to get the fee while the tear is in the eye. I'll say that again. You want to get the fee while the tear is in the eye. I understand the importance of striking while the iron is hot. But you've got to understand that you're coming into the situation very emotional. And so it's very easy to find someone who's going to advocate for you. Oh, this attorney sounds like they're on my side. Like, we're going to go in and we're going to attack and we're going to get them for everything they're worth. I'll be honest, it's very easy as an attorney to do that. Okay? I think you can oversell, okay? And I think what you really want, okay, is you want an attorney that can think more like a judge and maybe not so much as an advocate. Okay, that at least, I mean, that's my perspective, and I know I'm very different, and it's probably why I don't do family law. That's because I would sit and I would say, well, look, if I'm being honest, you've got some faults and they've got some faults. So here's a gold nugget. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Okay, there's a lot of gray area. And what you think, I've had people say, look at this text message. This says what it says. And I said, well, that could easily be explained away. So sometimes when you come into these, you are so looking for someone on your side because the person on your side is not on your side anymore. And so you're looking for that advocate. And so you got to be mindful that these attorneys are in the business of making money. And if anybody says, oh, I'll just do this for free, I'm not going to charge you anything, that's kind of a red flag because, any attorney who does things for free, you got to be cautious. Like that's not how the world works. Like getting something for free, it's kind of a red flag. That attorney should know their worth. And they should charge whatever that is. But another attorney said, look, for me and for the client, divorce is a business transaction. Okay, I'm not saying I ascribe to that, but they said it's a business transaction. There's a lot of emotions with that business transaction. But for the attorney, they're looking at, how complicated is this case? How complicated is this client? What are the issues? How much time am I going to have into it? And how much money can get out of them? Okay? And I say get out of them. Maybe that's not the right term to use. But the attorney is thinking, well, I've got somebody here that really can't afford to litigate this like it's $1 million estate. And I've got to rein them in so we're not blowing through a lot of money that may or may not actually lead to any different result. Okay? So those are some of the things I've heard attorneys say. So be careful on the advice that you get from an attorney. Ask them good questions. And so that's what Stage 3 does in the academy. It kind of tells you, here are questions you should ask of the attorney. Okay, and some of them are questions you should ask yourself before you walk into the attorney's office. Some folks come in and they say, I don't even know where to start. This came and blindsided me, and I have no idea where to start. Well, I would say please go watch Stage 3 and learn things about you. Okay, I'll just tell you one little tip. There are some attorneys that say, hey, I'm a bulldog, and I'm going to go after him, and I'm going to fight for every right that you have, okay? And if you, as a party to a divorce, are already worked up a lot, I don't think you need an attorney to go anymore, okay? So that might not be a good fit, right? And some people don't want to hear that. They just say, I want the most aggressive person. I've seen that in court, okay? I've seen the attorney put on a show. But from a person that's not involved in it, I'm like, that's not really moving the needle. Just because they sound like they're really advocating, that doesn't mean it's really landing. Okay? So what lands? Well, what lands is really what the judge wants to hear and what's pertinent. And you got to be mindful that there's been situations where the client, the party, they walked out of the courtroom and they are just, the judge gave them everything they wanted, but they're outside the courthouse upset with their attorney because they didn't get more. The thing is, a lot of times what's being said by the judge and by the attorneys, the parties don't even understand. Okay, there's a lot of legal jargon that happens, and so they don't even know what's actually happening. And so when they walk out, they're like, it looks like we lost, but the truth is you won. So you have to understand yourself as you're going into something that you don't have this experience in this realm. There are weird rules that we lawyers use and language that we use to reduce very complex things. And so sometimes you have to understand that the attorney that you hire, just because they're the most vociferous, yelling the most, that doesn't mean they're actually winning. Okay, so your attorney may be more mild-mannered, may have a lot of experience, may ask questions the right way that's landing better with the judge. So I think it's careful who you take your advice from. What I'm saying is don't use social media. I don't think social media is the best. Honestly, if you want my honest opinion, sometimes I think estate planning attorneys are the best attorneys to get referrals to a family law attorney. You might say, well, that's kind of odd. Well, I don't do family law, but I know the reputation of others who do family law. And so I don't have a dog in the fight. And I've talked to folks before. I've sat down with them before, and I said, look, I'll sit down and give you an hour of my time, tell you what I think, but that's it. And I like to be able to offer that. I like that I have the experience and I can crystallize it, and they can hear me as somebody who doesn't want their case. It's very different, right? The get the fee while the tears in the eye. I'm not, just pay me an hour of my time, ask me a question. That's it. I don't want to draft any of the documents. I don't want to go to court over it. I just want to be just a sounding board for things. And I feel like that's a great. I think there needs to be more attorneys that do that, and I can diffuse a lot of things by saying, that doesn't really matter, or look, you're going to have to pick and choose your battles, and there is some power that if I don't, knowing that I don't want the case, I can say, well, I don't think that's the best approach here. Okay, I think you maybe are coming off a little too strong and not being fair, because the truth is nobody's 100% right or wrong. No matter what you want to say, it's just the truth. Okay, but I think that's important.
Thank you for tuning in to the Hearse Chaser podcast show. Our mission is to be your first choice for last wishes. Want to dive deeper? Join us over at the Hearse Chaser Academy, where we've created 8 on-demand courses for each stage of life. From young adulthood to retirement, navigating separation or blended families, and everything in between, we help you plan for the future, no matter where you're at. Now stay with us as the ride continues on the Hearse Chaser podcast show.
I think I want to mention on stage 3, if you're watching this in another state, there's a bonus on how to find a good family law attorney in your area. So things that I would look at that would help me find a good attorney. Questions I would ask if I met within things that I would be looking for on their website. I think as an attorney, I feel like I'm probably a little bit better than average of finding an attorney that I work with. That would be a good attorney to work with. So that if you're in another state, I can't help you. I wouldn't help you in Arkansas, and I definitely wouldn't help you in another state. But the bonus video is how to find a good attorney. I think it's worth it before you dive into it. I think it's helpful to know things that you should look for. I think emotion, the fourth thing I wrote down here is emotion is a big part of it. I don't like divorce. I've seen it. I've seen what it does, not only to the married party, but the kids and the lasting effects that it has on a relationship. And I have very strong opinions about it. And, I here's something I hear. I hear something like, well, the person that they are today is not the person I married. I said, of course that's true. We all change. I'm not the same person I was when I got married, and neither is my wife. She wasn't a mother at the time. She is a mother now. I wasn't a father at the time. I'm a father now. We're older. We're wiser. We change. Someone said something along the lines of, whoever you marry, you're going to marry like 5 different versions of that person over the course of their life. It's not just one person. We're changing, and so the expectations change a little bit too. So, I just want to encourage you that if there's a way to seek counseling, if there's a way to work together, try to do that, because I probably get on to a family therapy side of things, but when it becomes divorce, it becomes his problems and her problems. When you're in a marriage, everything is our problem, right? Things that you're working on together. And what often happens is, even in marriages, sometimes you just get to the point where you're like, well, if he would just fix this, it's not, well, how can we work on that? How can we make the best of the situation? So I just want to, oftentimes when there's a divorce, it's hard to reconcile that because the mindset is the problems are the people's problems, they're not our problems. I want to say this. This is what my partner said many years ago before he passed. Just a little bit of wisdom. And I'll pass it along. If anybody listens to this, and this leads to reconciliation or helps someone, in some ways, it will have been worth repeating here. My partner said that most marriages would be absolutely fine if both parties would treat each other with the common decency you give a stranger. You wouldn't yell at a stranger. You wouldn't throw things at a stranger. But a lot of times we treat the ones we love worse than anyone. And I always thought that is so true, how important it is to have at least some level of decency. And I don't know. He said that. It stuck with me. Again, might not be a golden nugget that you take with you, but I really kind of like that. Next thing I want to talk about is the time frame. I hate hearing divorces go on for 3, 4, 5 years. Oh, it bugs the heck out of me. You may know from the very beginning that it's going to be a headache. It's going to be awful. Okay? And I've seen them go on for too long. And the advice I would tell people who went through it, if they say, what could I have done differently? Here's a bit of advice. And I don't know how to say this like smoothly, or I'm just trying to be as candid as possible so it gets out. So I'm sorry if sometimes I put too fine of a point on it. Okay, so I apologize. And again, sometimes you have to take the golden nuggets and maybe polish it off a little bit for yourself. It may be this, that you and the other person are so far apart from each other, and you know it's going to be contentious. Just tell the attorneys, look, the only way this can be resolved is to tell the judge we need 2 or 3 days scheduled so everything's resolved. I actually said it pretty well there, actually. What I'm trying to say is get it on the judge's docket, because you can be 4 months, 6 months, 8 months down the road and realize we can't solve this. And if that's the case, well, it's going to take you like 9 months to get that much time on the judge's calendar. So just go ahead and say, Judge, we got a big problem. There's no way we're going to resolve this. Let's put it together. Okay, let's get it on the calendar so it'll be resolved. And in some ways, you would be surprised how many people start settling in the courthouse. I'll tell you my biggest frustration. One of the frustrations I had was it was very difficult to work with some attorneys. they wouldn't agree on anything unless it was in the halls of the courthouse or if it was in the courtroom. So they couldn't even agree on who keeps the cars. And I'm thinking, this is his car, this is her car. Can we not agree on who gets what car? Okay? So I think it's important to make sure that if you know it's going to be long, go ahead, get it on the calendar. Okay? All right? 6, you got to really talk about prioritizing your goals, what's important to you. And here's the thing you need to know. It's pretty much divided 50-50. Okay? If I know that as an attorney, if I know it's 50-50, I can go into court and I can argue for 65%. And if I lose and get 55%, hey, I got 5% more than I should have. It seems to me that you would just look at the assets and divide it 50-50. Okay? How that becomes so complex, I don't know. Okay? You have at some point you have to say, look, I am willing to give them more to be done because my peace of mind is better. That's a kind of a healthy place to look at it, and I think that happens. What you don't want to happen is if you are somebody who's a pushover, maybe that's when you got to get the attorney that's got a bulldog or advocate for you. And you have to understand that. I think I see that with men more than I do with women. I think sometimes men will be like, I don't care, just take it all, right? Well, maybe in that case you want the attorney that's a little bit more aggressive. It just kind of depends. Knowing in that video, I talk about getting the right attorney for you and your personality. You have to know yourself a little bit, okay, and know how it's going. But prioritize things. I think when it boils down to it, you got the money, you got the kids, okay? And maybe you just work on the money side first. Like, okay, we're going to have a hearing on the money first and then the kids. Bifurcate it if you can. But the money is hard. Most families can't afford long, protracted litigation for years. They can't afford it. So it's very costly, and attorneys can make more than anybody in this situation. In some cases, you don't certainly want that. So try to solve what you can and then prioritize. So what I mean by that is, what do you need the judge for? What you can't agree on, or maybe what's unusual about this case, send it to the judge. Or maybe you and the other attorney, they all agree on the facts, just send it to him, let him decide. Okay, so you want to think from the judge, again, the judge's perspective. The judge, what am I here for? What do you need me to decide? So think, are we really there to talk to the judge about dividing the cars and the clothing? Okay. Are we? Maybe we are, right? But the more that you can be reasonable with and settle, the better. Okay, I think that's better, and let the judge know what you can't deal with. Last thing about divorce, this is a big pet peeve of mine. Make sure you get the property squared away. So a lot of times there's a divorce decree, but there's no follow-up deed. So for example, if there's a divorce, wife gets the house, husband needs to transfer and say, I want all of my interest to my ex-wife. Give it to her. Okay? You want that deed afterwards so the real estate records are clear. Okay? So make sure that if there is real property, that's cleaned up too. Because sometimes the divorce decree is not enough for the real property. You kind of have to make sure that's done. And I often see that as an estate planning attorney. When I come into it, I'm like, that wasn't done. That should have been done. Okay? Lastly, I'll just say that, if you're watching this, my heart goes out to you. I don't think it's what anyone intends, but I hope in some ways this has given you some help, some advice. If you have, please share this with other people. Share it on social media. Say, hey, this guy really knows what he's talking about. He's really helpful. That just show if this helps somebody else, some of the gold nuggets here, all the better. And stage 3 is there if you want a little bit more deeper process, because you do need to also think about estate planning too. It's part of that. You got to update your powers of attorney. You especially during the middle of your divorce. I've had situations where people they died in the middle of a divorce. That wasn't good. Okay, so this is just my way of helping people in some of the hardest, most difficult things in their life. If this has helped you, I wish you nothing but the best, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks again for joining us on the Hearse Chaser podcast show.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Hearse Chaser podcast show. Please remember, you can't outrun a hearse, but you can leave your family with a smooth ride.